Welcome to the Work in Progress podcast. This is a space where we want to create conversations around things that actually matter. Thanks for joining us today. We hope these words encourage you to know that no matter where we are in our journeys, we're all still a work in progress. Hey, what's up? Welcome to the Work in Progress podcast. I almost said the wrong name, dude. Something else came up in my brain.
It's been a while. If you've noticed, we've taken a couple weeks off just to get a little summer break.
Woo!
Recharge, rested.
Look at this man's tan. Look at this tan line. You know it's summer when you got
that's
that.
That's the dad tan line, man. Yeah, but we're back and we're going to kick off our next couple episodes talking about just like the personal relationships that we are all have walked through or are walking through.
Yeah.
And so it should be good. So it's not necessarily a series over the next couple of weeks, but in a way it is, because it's all about personal relationships. So
Dude, I got a question actually.
Yeah,
speaking
man.
about that.
Go for it.
Are you on the apps, bro? You on the dating apps?
Not on the dating apps. I'm happily married, man.
Okay.
Well,
that's good,
on
I
the
guess.
dating apps. Yeah.
What was dating like for you, man? Because
Yeah.
it's so different now
For
than
sure.
it was when you're
For
old,
sure.
but was
doubt.
dating in the dating
Honestly,
scene.
Lauren, who's my wife, we talk about this, because we're dealing with like students and young adults, and we're
Yeah.
like, man, I am so blessed that I didn't have to date in 2023.
Yeah, true that, bro.
Like dating now is very different.
Mm-hmm.
Like we still have, like we're still young enough that we still do have friends that are dating that aren't like married or whatever. And so like just hearing their stories and like their conversations about like the dating apps and the people that they come across, it's like, oh my gosh, that would be a terrible life to live. And so really that's kind of like where this discussion is going to go, because dating is hard. Like if we're honest 100%, like it was hard 10 years ago. It was hard 5 years ago. I think it's really hard now, especially like post like COVID, post like 2 years of not like actually linking up with people face to face, because like apps and dating like online is probably the most common way that I think people get together now. And so yeah, dating is very complicated and very difficult. And dating is also one of those topics that people are like, it doesn't really talk about dating in scripture because, well, they didn't date.
Right.
And so it doesn't necessarily talk about dating explicitly, but we're going to talk about, there are things that Bible talks about that we can relate directly to dating. And so,
Yeah.
So,
To kick us off, bro, like with all that being said, man, like how do we date? Especially like as young adults, right? That's like probably the dating demographic usually.
For sure.
The young adult phase, 20s and 30s. How do we do it? How do we navigate it? Especially as like Christian men and women.
yeah.
How do we even navigate that topic?
Yeah, I think dating is one of those topics that there's a couple of people that align like on different sides, right? There's people that align on a side of like, yeah, you should just date as often as you can to figure out that's like a buffet, right? Like take a little sample here, figure out what you like here, figure out what you like here, figure out what you like here. And then there's some people on the other side of this conversation who are like, you only date the person you're going to marry. Like your first kiss should be at the altar when you get married.
Yeah, that's true.
And so there's like some extreme sides to this. And so honestly, I think like most things, in the middle of that is probably the good place to be.
Right.
I think that dating needs to be intentional. I think you need to have a purpose when you're dating.
Right.
Right. The purpose of dating is to get married. But I'm not saying that the person that you're dating right now is the person that you marry.
Mhm.
But with that, like is a little like disclaimer, because dating, like when you're seriously dating, you get romantically and emotionally involved with somebody.
Yeah.
Feelings are formed, and the more you do that, like the stronger those feelings get,
Mhm.
and the more you're actually going to have heartbreak, right? And so you have to guard your heart, like just like scripture talks about, like guarding your heart. And I think that especially in dating, you have to guard that as well, because dating leads to next steps.
Right.
Like, right. Casually dating and being friends with people. I think that's the way to do the buffet, air quote, the buffet, to see what you like be friends with people, maybe go out casually where you're not seriously involved. But when you take that next step to like being seriously involved with somebody, I think you need to be sure that you're ready to be married, right? Because why are we getting seriously involved with people unless we're ready to be married when that's the next step?
Right.
And so I think that's a blend of the two ways of thinking. I think that's it just blows my mind. Some of the people that like we talk to that are like dating, and I'm like, bro, you ain't got nothing figured out. Like, why are you dating?
Right.
Like, that's the last thing that you should really be worried about. They're dating because they're lonely. And so they think that dating fills the needs of friendships. That shouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
And so if that answers your question.
No, that's good, man. And I like what you said. Like, I think now that I hear that articulated and I think back, that's kind of what I did. Like, I never committed to anybody because I was friends enough with them to understand, like, I don't think this is the person that I want to be with or like that I'm ready to commit to. And so just speaking personally, like I knew that I was going to date to marry. That was like the way that my mind was set, probably because maybe a little bit of like, you know, like the church fear or whatever of like, you know, date to marry. Cause that was kind of shoved down my throat at an early age, for lack of better terms. Yeah. And so that's kind of my lens looking through the whole thing. And so I never really pursued anybody because I knew, like, you know, this isn't the one I want to marry, or I don't think I could see myself marrying them at this point. And also I wasn't ready, you know, like in high school, my really young days and then young adult and college days, I was so focused on just school and like honestly playing intramural basketball. So like if those are your priorities, I don't know if you're ready to date or get married. So that's interesting, man. And
I think like even when you're saying that, I also think that like, especially as guys, it takes us a little bit longer to be maturity wise ready to seriously date. Yeah. Most oftentimes than it does. Like, you know, we meet a lot of people in like our line of work. And like, even when you begin to look at like late teens, early 20s, most of the time, ladies are a little more advanced on like the maturity scale of like, they have a plan, they know what they want to do. They've got all these plans. And us guys, cause I was the same way, like we just want to shoot hoops, man. Like we're like, let's go. Like I'm just trying to go hoop. Yeah. And so even in that, like, I think like what you're talking about, it's okay. Like if you're listening to this right now and you're like, oh, I just graduated high school and I haven't dated, it's okay. Like there's this timeline. I think we get so fixated. I think especially like even in church culture of like these timelines fitting, like, you need to be dating by the time you're 18, you need to be engaged by the time you're 21, you need to be married by the time you're 22 so that you can have kids by 25, like whatever. Like you don't have to follow these timelines. And so I think my story is kind of similar. I think actually gives hope of like, I think you should work on the maturity pieces first. Like make sure your walk with Christ is like strong. Make sure that you've got a plan. Make sure you've got like maybe your education plan or whatever you want to do for a job or a career or whatever. And maybe you should have those things figured out before you actually worry about bringing somebody else romantically involved into your life. And so friendships, huge. It's key, like you just talked about. Because that's good, man. The friend circles that you're in, you really do begin to see like those are some characteristics that I would love to date and marry, right? And a lot of times like the best relationships come from friendships, like people that you know who they are whenever they're not trying to impress. When they've gone through stuff, you see them and you're like, that is like somebody I can date and marry because I've seen them walk through life as friends and I know what they're really like. And so, dude, and actually I knew my wife Taylor for years before we even started dating. And then eventually, obviously we got married, but like, that's a cool point that you bring up because I kind of knew her. And honestly, when I first met her, I was like, I'm going to stay away from this person. And then eventually, like the tides changed. I hope she listens to this. No, she's not going to listen to this where I could say whatever I want, but I won't. But no, dude, like the tides changed and then like we started pursuing each other and I saw her pursuing Christ. And that's kind of what led me to chase after her, for lack of a better terms. And the tides changed by maturity. Like both of you guys came to a place where you're beginning to mature in faith, in life. And it changes what people look like. And that's a really good example of what that real life looks like. So that's good, man. Yeah, it's really cool, man. So dude, the buffet, that's just so funny to hear you say like the buffet style of like dating, like how culture kind of tells people do it. Like, right. That's the best way I can word it. It's like going to the golden corral of dating. Yeah. And I was thinking about like the apps and stuff, you know, like all the dating apps and stuff like that. That's currently probably the easiest way to date. And I was like, man, that's kind of like ordering DoorDash. You know what I mean? Like you could just click a couple buttons and then you got a date lined up. That's so wild to me that's like so convenient at your fingertips. What are your thoughts on like the dating apps? I mean, dating apps, I think they can be good.
Yeah.
It all comes back to like, what's your intention behind like these dating apps?
Yeah.
Like, are you hopping on there to casually hook up? Because then we've got a lot bigger problems than just a dating app.
Right.
Like, are you getting on there for friendship? Because even in that, like, I don't think that's the place to go and find your friends.
Right.
Or are you getting on there to like, just because maybe you're new to a town and like you are ready to start dating and that's an avenue you can do. I know a lot of these dating apps now like actually allow you to set like, hey, I'm a Christian. I'm looking for a Christian. Like I'm whatever.
That's cool.
And I've known some people that have like found their forever person through a dating app. And it's still like, I'm not like some like old, like, no apps, but I think you have to be incredibly careful because just think about,
right.
like if you look at like your Instagram page or like my Instagram page or whatever, Facebook, whatever, like we're not putting our truest selves on those platforms,
True.
right? You're picking your best picture,
Fair.
you're putting your best moments, like, right? I think a dating app is similar. You're putting your greatest characteristics.
That's good.
You're putting your best picture. And so you have to just be careful and be super mindful of like going all in on dating apps.
No, that makes sense. It's almost like a resume, right? Like your job resume. You're not going to put like the mistakes you made on your resume, right? Because you want to get that job.
Right.
But dude, that reminds me of, so you know what? I just totally lost my train of thought. Never mind.
Well, what I was going to say is that also a lot of times like the dating apps, they're so focused on the attraction piece. That's, I mean, you have to be attracted, I think, to people like when you're walking into that romantic relationship, but it's not everything. And I think those dating apps can be so superficial.
Yeah.
Because you're just looking at a picture and deciding like, yep, that's the one I want to have interest in.
Yeah.
And so again, like I know when it happens in real life, like, yeah, you see somebody and you're like, oh yeah, like I could try to vibe with that. But you have to just be, again, like with dating apps, I'm not saying they're bad. Like you have to just be super careful, like with where you're investing, like how much emotional ties you're having to a picture on a screen. And
I agree. And it's like anybody can, say something over text. It's quite easy. And actually you might have even found yourself in a situation where you find yourself getting emotionally involved with somebody just because you text them, like, or communicate through the screen.
Yeah.
Like 85, 90% of the time. And then you meet them in real life and you're like, oh, this is kind of not the same, like this isn't, they're acting a little different than what I expected, or, whatever. I kind of look at it like driving a little bit. Like when you're driving, yeah, sure. You know what you're doing, but that doesn't mean everybody else does. So you kind of have to drive defensively as if people don't. And so like when you're on the apps, you just because you're looking for someone to date long-term and be committed to, that doesn't mean other people are. And so you have to be aware of that and like cautious of that, just because people are on there just trying to hook up. And so just because you're not doesn't mean they aren't. And so there's a lot of things that come with that. But
like I said, dating is so much harder now because like, it's been like a decade since like I dated, honestly, but like even in that, like you did it face to face and you could kind of tell people's intentions pretty quickly. I mean, there can be like the charmer who's like super, just they get you, they fool you. But it's so much easier to be fooled like when all you're doing is communicating through a screen. And so, it's just a new way of dating, and one that should cause you to be even more on guard with where you're letting your emotional attachments go. Yeah, absolutely. So how do you know like who the right person is, right? Like what if you are looking on the apps or you're looking in person, like how do I know this person's okay to date? I was given this amazing example actually in our premarital counseling. And so again, I was already linked to Lauren. We were engaged. We were in our premarital counseling, but I heard this example and I think it actually rings true for dating, right? It's a picture of a triangle, right? So you have this triangle, right? And so if I am one end of the triangle and Lauren, my spouse, girlfriend, dating, fiance, whoever, is the other end of the triangle, right? The closer that we get to Jesus, the closer we get to each other, right? So if Jesus is the top one of the triangle, if I am chasing and getting closer to Jesus and she is chasing and getting closer to Jesus, right? We're going to get closer together just by means of that we're getting closer to Jesus, right? Right. And so like in your dating relationships, future marriage relationships, I think that's the goal, right? That's the goal, is that you're chasing after Jesus first and then each other second, right? And so I think there's a very popular passage, Proverbs 31. It's a Proverbs 31 woman. You may have heard that before, but I don't think it's just for women here, because I think Proverbs 31:30 says, charm is deceptive, beauty does not last, but a woman who fears the Lord will be greatly praised, right? And so I think that's like your goal for dating is like, man, looks come, looks go. Like we all get old, our bodies change, our faces change, you know, something may happen.
Yeah.
So beauty fades, like beauty goes away, but it's like the beauty of the heart, like what they're chasing after that is like what should be praised and honored. And so when you're looking for that right person to date, when you're looking for that one that you should invest your time and effort and energy into, I think it's the one who's chasing after Jesus. Yeah. Like that's, I agree. As a Christian, that should be your bottom line. It's like, that's somebody who makes me better chasing after Jesus.
It's interesting how that works. Cause I've like, you know, I kind of just mentioned it earlier, but I've got to do that and witness it firsthand with my wife as I saw her totally, you know, not walking with Christ. And then I grew more in love with her as she was chasing Christ and kind of had that priority even over me, like especially over me. And then that led me to start chasing Christ. And then like we literally have that picture of the triangle, right? And sometimes we're not on the same line, but I don't think that has to be even every time, you know? And so that's cool. That's a really cool thing to picture when you're dating. And it reminds me of Matthew 6:33. You know what that one is?
Tell me.
Dude, seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all these will be added to you. Man, I just learned that verse. Let's go. Give me props on that one, boy.
Good job, man.
Let's go, dude.
Good job.
Let's go.
Yeah, I think that's the bottom line. Like, right, if you're a Christian, if you're a believer, then the things that you chase after should be those things that also bring you closer to Christ. As a matter of fact, just a couple weeks back, I was preaching out of Malachi, and we came across this, and there's a lot of dating language that goes into that passage, and so I actually found this, and it's not in Malachi, but it's a verse related to in 2 Corinthians chapter 6. And so I love the way the Message translation says this. And so I just want to read this because it's pretty like lengthy, but I want you to like just get the mental picture of like what we're talking about. So don't become partners with those who reject God. How can you make a partnership out of right and wrong? It's not a partnership, it's war. Is light best friends with dark? Does Christ go strolling with the devil? Do trust and mistrust hold hands? All right, so what it's saying is like, why would I want to attach myself to somebody who is not chasing after the same things that I am chasing after? It doesn't make sense. All right, it's like oil and water. Like those things don't go together. Yeah. And so again, like I think we are so quick to be like, yeah, the Bible doesn't really speak to dating. Oh, it does. All right, so if you have nowhere else to look, go look at 2 Corinthians 6. Just read over that and be reminded that like, right, your most intimate, closest, personal relationships, those should be the ones that chase after Jesus. Yeah. Like you're not called to, your mission on earth is to go and seek and save lost. Like, right. You want to be that, like that, you want to be that missional presence, but not in your dating world. Yeah. Right? We're not dating to save people.
Bro, was that you that said that?
Yeah, I did. I said that in that sermon. So I'm just going to it's just a good thing to be
you
said.
You had a good line in there. What was the line?
I don't remember the line.
You said date, like you said evangelism, something about evangelism. Do you remember?
Oh yeah. Something like, you know, your evangelistic endeavor is not in the dating circle.
Yeah.
Like, right. Good. You can be friends with people that you want to have them save, you know, you don't want them to die and go to hell. And so like, you want to speak truth in the gospel to them. Mm-hmm. But your dating relationships, that's not really the space for that. Yeah. Because like 2 Corinthians 6 is talking about these things don't go together. Right. And so you have to guard your most intimate and personal relationships, which in this world is dating. And so I think, I think that's a good place to just kind of wrap up the conversation.
I think so.
I think realize that dating leads to the next steps, right? Dating leads to marriage, right? And so if you're not ready to be committed in marriage with your time, your finances, sex, effort, like all of it, if you're not ready to be there, don't be dating seriously. Like, that's just not a good idea. And then even in that, when you're ready to date seriously, you need to seek after somebody who's chasing Jesus, like somebody who makes you better on the triangle, brings you closer to Christ. And so, yeah, you can do that on a dating app. You can do that in person, but you need to be guarding your heart. And so, that's what I think I'll leave it at that for the dating conversation.
Good, man. Yeah, guard your heart and be intentional with it.
That's good.
All right, Creative Corner, you go first.
Yes, sir. Creative Corner. We are filming this today on Friday, August 4th. A new album just dropped this morning from Indie Tribe, my dudes. It's called Lowdown. Go check it out. I've only heard like the first half of it before we hopped in this podcast. it's already like fire. So
Yeah, it's good.
I know it's going to be good. So go check it out. If you like rap, go check them out, man. They are just literally what they say. They're an indie tribe. They're awesome. So go check out that album, and you'll be glad you did.
Let's go. All right, I got a guy you guys need to follow on IG.
Follow him right now.
This man's name is Karsten Weingart. We'll tag him in Indie Tribe's new album in the show notes. But man, this dude is one of the greatest photographers and videographers and editors that I've ever met. We went to Andy Mineo concert. Was it Andy Mineo? I mean, it was like the whole...
It was the whole 116 when they came to Austin.
116, that's right. It was the 116 concert. And this man like had taken the photos of the people. He got paid to do it. So I linked up with him on IG. And then since then, I've gotten coffee with him. I've met him at his house. He like showed me some photography like tricks and tips and stuff. And this man is incredible, man. And he's been blessed throughout his whole career. And he's worked with Andy Mineo, Lecrae, KB, all these big Christian artists. And it's really cool to see. He's got a 116 tattoo on his bicep.
He's
so every
legit.
time he takes the photos, it's like you could see the tattoo. It's pretty
He's
dope,
legit.
man. Great guy. Cool creative guy. Follow him. And that's it. That's all we got.
That's right. So share this with your friends. We'd love to hear what you think about it. Leave us a comment. You know, we're on now Spotify, YouTube. I guess we're on Instagram, not the full thing. But yeah, share it, interact, man. We want to know, like, is it helping? And so leave us a note, man. We'd love to hear it. If you have other ideas for future podcast episodes, send us a DM. We'd love to hear from you.
Hit us up. If we have questions or you have questions that we missed, let us know.
That's it.
We'll get them.
That's it. Have a good week.
Bye, guys.